welcome to a special edition of the Burrow podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and today I'm joined by two special guests. First of all, I'd like to introduce Mark Rayner, and very, very special surname there. Mark, how you doing?
Very well, mate. How are you fellas? Going good?
Yeah,
we're doing well.
not too bad, mate. Yeah, they got the great Jack Rayner, mate. The big hero of my father's, mate, Jack.
Mate, I got his name, but none of his ability, mate.
and also join us from, really doesn't need any introduction, from Rabbitohs Radio podcast, Grant Chappell. How you doing, mate?
It's a rough head on this side of the camera, guys, but you're going to have to stick with it there. No, I'm all good, mate. The rain stopped there. We've had a prick of a week rain-wise. You know all about it, Josh. You haven't been able to work much, but sun popped out yesterday, and I think it'll pop out at some stage today. So, yeah, we're ready to talk stadiums here today.
Yeah, well, I think you're in good company here with rough heads, mate. That's for sure. But yeah, we're here today to talk about something that's been in the news all this week. It's potential move to Allianz Stadium, and there's certainly mixed emotions here. I've got two guys here that are certainly on opposite sides of the fence. So we'll go straight into it. Mark, you're very against the move to Allianz for obvious reasons for yourself. You want to go into a bit of depth why you prefer to stay at Accor?
Yeah, mate. Well, like I talked to you about the other day, mate. For my reasons are purely selfish ones. My family and I, we live in the Penrith area now, and obviously Penrith is, extremely close proximity to Accor, and mate, the amount of South Sydney paraphernalia that we see walking around the streets of Penrith. I've seen more South supporters here in Penrith than I have Penrith supporters. So, as you boys know, Rabbitohs are everywhere. And I think, really, when you play a game in our local area, it's going to deeply impact those people that aren't from that local area. And being South Sydney isn't just about living in the Redfern, Maroubra, Moore Park sort of regions. It's Sydney wide. It's Australia wide, and I just think that it would impact the ability for people out here to be able to go on and watch our team play.
Yeah, fair points you raised there, and Chaps, yourself, you're an advocate for Allianz Stadium. Do you want to give us a bit of insight into the positives there?
Well, obviously we've been out at Allianz there since Accor Stadium since 2006, I think it was. We moved out there. Is that about right, boys? And obviously it didn't change my membership. I obviously jumped in and had a ticketed member there and ticketed seat and chuffed up there many times. Come home with our tail between our legs plenty of times. Me and my brother nearly had a fight in the train, actually, coming home one day over an issue that went nose to nose. Didn't come to blows, but that's the way it goes. That's the passion of being a South supporter. Emotions can spill over. I mean, I think Josh can attest to that. I've seen his emotions spill over many times at the ground. But
what?
Look,
what are you talking about?
No, actually, different Josh. Actually, different Josh.
Yeah. He's so measured with his responses.
He fires up, but that's just because what's in his heart and in his soul. And like you said, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're a South Sydney fan, you can feel part of the club from Perth. You can feel part of the club from Queensland, or I've got friends in America and Europe that still follow South just as mad as any of us on camera here today. And I'm happy to go back to Accor. I've got no dramas with that if they upgraded the facilities like they said they were going to do, and live up to their contract, because now for me it's actually quicker to get there than what it ever has been, because they've upgraded that M8. I can basically go down Foreshore Road, whip around the airport, and I'm on an expressway. I get there in about 30 minutes. I'd almost get there as quick as the crew from Penrith, just about, Wouldn't be that much difference. Allianz and Accor, Allianz Stadium, if I went public transport, it'd almost be the same distance, same time, door to door, than it would be for me to drive to. So I don't care about the proximity, blah, blah, blah. For me, I care about the stadium experience, the fan experience. I think you're closer to the game. It's a purpose-built rugby league, purpose-built soccer stadium. We've all been to those stadiums, whether it's Suncorp Stadium or the one in Melbourne, Amy Park. I really like that one. smaller condensed version. The Parramatta Stadium's a great one too. This one's been built by the same people as Parramatta Stadium. And obviously we played 80 or 90 odd years there in that area. At the start of the 19th century there, the 20th century. We were over at Redfern there for 40 odd years as well, which is not far. It's only a couple of Ks. We've been out there at Accor, Homebush there, just on 20 odd years. And if we come back to Moore Park, I think it's just going to be a natural progression for the club. And I'm happy to go both ways. I don't mind. But at the moment, I just prefer to go out there purely for stadium experience.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, the three of us here, we're very staunch Rabbitohs supporters, and we'll go wherever they go for obvious reasons. For yourself, Mark, some games you just can't get to. Even for Accor, it's a bit of a stretch. Being having young kids and that, it makes it hard for you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, mate. But I mean, look, it's saying that like similar to Chaps, mate. Like we will, mate. As you know, Josh, like we've been on many away trips and all that sort of stuff. So that's certainly not, it's like Chap said as well, half an hour, with the new roads and stuff that they've sort of built in. The main problem for us is is the travel to the ground, the parking, things like that. When you've got young kids, it's not ideal at Allianz. Absolutely, 100% agree with everything that Chap said in terms of the venue itself, in terms of the proximity to the game, the entire playing experience. It's unmatched, and I think I had a bit of an idea earlier, where why don't we just play? I'm not sure if it can be done on a sponsorship or any of that sort of technical stuff that the clubs get involved with. That's all up to Solly and the team to work out. But why don't we play half of the games at Accor and half of the games at Allianz and just sort of make everybody happy.
Well, you bring up a good point there, and I was lucky enough to interview Blake Solly before the Tigers game last weekend, and he spoke about the makeup of, if we do move to Allianz, that would have a breakdown of 9 games at Allianz, 2 games at Accor, and 1 game at Gosford. So, and obviously we'll still get the reciprocal rights for the Bulldogs game. So we'll definitely be getting more games for our season ticket there. But yeah, there's definitely going to be 2 games at Accor soon. The makeup of the other game, one will be the Bulldogs, and it'll depend on a few things, who the what the other game will be. So that is definitely something that has been thought of.
I think it's a good point. I reckon the Bulldogs, we should always play them at Accor Stadium. We should always play Parramatta there. We should always play Penrith there. They're the main Western Sydney teams. I know the West Tigers are a bit, but half of their fans are probably still in the West, half are Campbelltown. So we'll drag the West Tigers supporters to Allianz. But there's 3 games plus the reciprocal rights game. There's 4 games we could play there. The rest we could play down here, Allianz Stadium. I think there'll be cooler heads will prevail. The Penrith Panthers, I can remember playing Penrith Panthers out here at when it was the SFS. There weren't big crowds, were they, boys?
No.
It's pretty hard for them to get there on a Thursday night or a Friday night. And we get a lot of Thursday, Friday night games because purely we are the number 1 rating football club in Australia with Collingwood on the ratings. There's nothing like our
as we should be, mate.
Yeah, as we should be, mate. We'll sit top of the pops there, no doubt about it. I think something like that could happen because from my information, I think we're going to Allianz. I'm going to put it up at 95% at the moment that we're going there. But I think we spoke to Jack the other day, me and Josh did, and he brought up some really good points, I think, about the probably disadvantages of going to Allianz Stadium. Now, if someone's going to drive from a fair distance, whether it's Central Coast, Penrith, Wollongong, whatever, where am I going to park? What's it going to cost me to park? What's it going to be like getting out of a car park when there's 25,000 fans there trying to get out? Now, the old car park there where we used to park on the grass, it was a prick to get out, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You could, that's it, make 10 sandwiches before you got out of the car park. But, like...
Is that you speaking from experience, Matt?
yeah. Not gonna have a Vegemite sandwich in the car park, but no, like, and also there's from the tram, and it's great from Central to the tram is fantastic. They're pretty fast, those trams. They don't muck around. They're every couple of minutes, but it's quite a distance for an elderly person or someone who's a bit disabled or a small little child to get from the tram around to the actual ground. Then you got, what do we say, Josh? About 50 odd steps to get up there, or 30 odd steps to get up to the stadium.
There's quite a few steps. It's quite a bit of a walk there, and they've got a lift at the side. But even that, what happens when the lift's out? For disabled people, they'll have to go right around, and definitely the mobility issues there are not an issue there at Accor, are they?
No, they're not. And maybe the club could get some sort of bus for people that are a bit struggling to walk to go from Eddie Avenue and drops you straight to Driver Avenue. So you're out the front, you can go up the wheelchair access or up the stairs, or possibly maybe they might get something else leaving from the juniors. So you might want to park at the juniors instead of parking near the ground. And myself and my old man and my brother, we used to park at the South Sydney High School over the road. But that'd fill up pretty quick. It'd only handle, I don't know how many. And it was a lot cheaper than the parking over the road. Say the parking over the road was $8. They used to be only $5 back in the day. But with inflation, that could be $150 now and $200. Who knows, mate? But
I remember that, chaps. They were good days, mate. But you're right, mate. You had to get there super early.
yeah.
Otherwise, you were next to no chance of getting in there.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
Mark,
So I don't know. I haven't driven to one of the Allianz Stadium games yet. I've only done the public transport thing. So I don't know about you two. Where did you just park? Like
I used to back in the day. I used to park at the Leagues Club, and we'd sometimes walk there. Other times, I'd park right down at Centennial Park at times. Sometimes too, like even when we played the Roosters and that, and there was no more Leagues Club, I'd park down at Centennial Park, but I'd get there very early. My work during winter.
But that's you can only do that during the day, but day games only. You can't do that at night. Park the top of Centennial. The gates are locked.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Well, no, where I park, just out near there, the gate. It's before the gate, so
you park on the outside of Centennial Park.
Okay, we used to park inside there up the top.
But
you could get away with that with day games, chaps. Yeah, you could.
But for myself, being able to walk, even now at Homebush with those new apartments, I park in Newington now, and it's about a 15-minute walk for me, and it's not too bad. It's easy for me, but people that do have mobility issues, it's hard. You got the car park right there at Accor, don't you?
Yeah, we do. It's just, you can get P1 behind you. There's all the car parks up to P5. Depends how far you want to walk. But you can also jag some of those smaller parking spots where I go to, probably on the eastern side of that ground at Accor. Just probably 100 metres from the train station or 200 metres from the train station. You walk up along. There's all those restaurants. We can always get a sneaky one in there.
Yep.
I take me mum's wheelchair parking pass and put it in there sometimes, but look, I put my hand up. That's where I go.
It's all coming out now, isn't it, eh? It's all coming out now, mate.
They'll be checking your number plate now and kind of giving you a point now, won't they?
I'll have to use her car next time.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Mark, you want to talk about your experiences of Accor versus Allianz and getting in, getting out. Because I know you had issues with the game at Allianz a couple of years ago, and you weren't living out at Penrith then either, were you?
No, mate. No, not at all. No. Yeah, Look, it's with all those things that we've mentioned, it 100% can be done, right? It can be done. However, for you've got match day experience, and obviously corporate spaces and that sort of stuff at Allianz Stadium are all a plus for us fans and for obviously the club. I'd imagine that those corporate spaces at Accor are getting quite run down, used up. and the sponsorship corporate side of things would be a much better fit at Allianz in terms of bringing some more cash into the club and that sort of stuff, which is extremely important considering we don't have a major leagues club backing us. But for ease of getting to and from, not to mention the people with mobility issues and things like that. I just think, a core is, even though obviously the match day experience isn't as great as what it would be at Allianz. I just think that to look after everybody inclusively, a core is the way to go and still
We do want
be.
to talk about the ease of leaving the game of both. What's your preference there, and how easy is it to leave Accor compared to Allianz for you and the family?
If we were to have an 8 o'clock kickoff at Allianz, right, mate, we probably after the game's finished and we might be looking at about 11 o'clock, something like that, before we are able to sort of get back to Penrith. Where if it's an 8 o'clock kickoff at Accor, mate, we're back home within 15 minutes of the game finishing, kind of, you know what I mean? So purely selfish reasons, obviously having a young family and things like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're not kidding ourselves. If it's at Allianz, we'll still be going. There's no, but that's us. We're all a little bit of a different breed here on this on this podcast right now, and we
Well,
sort of, but
But
in
we
terms
all
of,
bleed red and green.
yeah,
oh,
in terms of other people, and the like, well, yeah, I mean that's debatable, isn't it? And I'm sure will continue to be a contentious topic in and around whatever we decide to do.
my wife constantly says to me, "Have you got a different subject besides South?" So I've got to find one. I'm going to find one, but I'll get one
Oh,
day.
we only know too long,
Is
Joe. We
is
can get
there
on the
is
phone
there
and start
one?
talking about it.
No, probably not.
Not on this podcast, mate.
I might.
Yeah,
Well, we did one at the start. We talked about the weather, but that lasted 30 seconds, so we
Yeah,
moved
yeah,
on to
yeah,
something
yeah.
else.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about some disadvantages as well, and one of the concerns I think that we've all got living in this bloody expensive city is the cost of the membership. Now, Josh, how many games have we got in our membership at the moment? Perth is away. Central
So,
Coast doesn't cover our membership.
Central Coast does.
Central Coast
Central Coast
does.
is included, yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we're probably down to 11 games? Is that right?
11 with the reciprocal rights to the Bulldogs. So
Okay.
we do get 11 games, whereas last year or maybe the year before, I think we only got 10. But
Yeah.
also, people have the option as well for the Charity Shield. But with the Charity Shield, you only get a GA ticket, and good luck getting on the hill there. It just fills so fast, whatever. But
Yeah.
with the Allianz deal, I believe it's going to be 13 games all up that we get access to,
I
plus the
can,
Charity Shield.
I can imagine you'll pay extra for those two games, for example, right? But
Yeah.
is that going to average out similar to the 11 that we're getting at Accor and the Central Coast? I think that's going to be a concern for the fans. They're not going to bump it up to an extra $5 or $10 per game times 13. You know what I mean? That's going to be a concern. Definitely.
Yeah, well, they didn't answer. They didn't answer that in the questionnaire that they put out on Monday. They kind of danced around that, but you imagine that it is going to be an increase. And the other thing that a lot of people are very focused on is their season ticket seating, whether
Yeah.
it's going to be a similar position or what. So being a smaller stadium as well, less seats in those areas that they have. So it'd be interesting to see where people who have their season tickets, say on the halfway line, prime position, if they're going to be moved further down or what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was definitely an issue for myself and my dad and my brother and my mate Cashy when we moved from SFS to Accor Stadium, or ANZ it was called back then. They moved us nowhere near where we were. We're on the 10-metre line at Accor. Out there, I was sitting behind the players. at SFS, I stormed in there and said, mate, what's going on here? Anyway, they put us on the other side, which is all right, in pretty good seats, just about in the middle of the stadium. I really like being in the halfway lane, get to see everything pretty evenly. But that stadium out there at Allianz, I've sat in a few different spots. I haven't sat in any real premium seats on the western side where they run out. I've sat in some pretty good seats on the opposite side when we played Para, and admittedly it wasn't a great game for us, but geez, what a great experience that was. The atmosphere there with 20-odd thousand there. 27, was it, Josh?
Yeah, it was 27,000. I've got it here, 27,432, which is the second highest regular season crowd we've had outside of Good Friday since that 59,000 against the Roosters in the final round of 2013. So people did vote with their feet that day, and we play the Eels again later this year, and it'll be interesting to see if we get a similar crowd, if not bigger. Especially that we hopefully be pushing for a final spot then.
Another thing I liked about that day is the way they can get the lighting going and stuff like that. It was like it's almost like a concert where they had the pre-match entertainment and the lights and all that. And I know Accor does it pretty good as well, because I was at Origin 1 last year when that was really good, with one of the former Burrow members, Adam Sampson, who said if we go to Allianz, he's going to join the Burrow, get Burrow seating again. So you might get some more people to join the Burrow, but you might get a few people that decide not to again. I don't know.
Adam was the former drummer of the Burrow back in the day when we won the premiership and that.
Well, he wants his job back, he reckons. But anyway,
right, he was at Campbelltown the other day. He got tickets with us at Campbelltown the other day. So
yeah, he said that.
He got to meet the new drummer and all that, which was good. Old beats new, so they may have to do a bit of a drum off, I think.
We might have to pull them apart there. We have to fight for it. Anyway, that's one of the obviously advantages there, I think, of the lighting and all that sort of stuff and the fan experience. But another huge point is obviously Keith McCaw and the crew from the juniors. I think that they're going to really benefit from it now, because South Sydney got their own app. They're the first team to develop their own app and get away from the Telstra one that the NRL kind of forced them all into a few years back. So you'll be able to jump on as a non-ticketed member, for example, and go, I'll buy a general admission to the game and click a box. I'll get a 50% meal at the juniors, and you get a beer or a wine with it, or a soft drink or something like that. So then you're encouraged to go before the game and have a feed and a beer or whatever, or a couple of beers, jump on the tram, or if it's a day game, you come back after and have dinner there, and they might have some post-match functions there as well, Josh, possibly. We don't know. Yeah. Maybe they'll do it at the ground like they have at Accor, or possibly they might do, like the old days where they do proper presentations run by the club.
There is going to be a members bar at Allianz, similar to what we have at Accor. Blake, in the interview I gave, and
okay.
If you haven't watched it at home, we have it here on YouTube, so give it a listen. But it was really good. He was very open and honest in that interview. I know you've watched it yourself, chaps.
Great interview. Great interview.
I'm not sure if you've watched it yet, Mark, but it's one that I recommend people do watch. And he explains especially the reason for moving to Allianz. And he did say that the preference was to stay at Accor. Unfortunately, the funding's just not there at all. They kept dropping it. So it was certainly an interesting interview, but he did speak about how there would be a members section there for people to go to. Or that may have been in the questions they put out on the Monday, but it was said there. But the juniors was a big thing as well for them. And Mark, you only know too well, back in the day, games were played at the SFS when we had the Leagues Club there, how good that was to go back to the Leagues Club. We weren't rushed out after an hour and everyone scattered, were we?
No, they were awesome. They were awesome times, mate. I was actually just thinking about all the awesome times that we had going from the Leagues Club to the KB as well. You know what I mean, on that march up the hill. And sometimes it turned more into a stagger up the hill than a march. You know what I mean? But they were really, really good times, mate. They were, loved them.
And I've got to say, Acor's got a couple of good little pubs and all that. That one they had for years, and they've just got a new one, the Locker Room. It's pretty good.
Yeah, the brewery and Locker Room.
I've only been in there a couple of times, but the ones near Allianz Stadium, you might have 50 pubs within walking distance, maybe more. Restaurants, 100 restaurants, pizza bar, whatever. There is a bit going on where it is. It's quite close to the city. for people that probably haven't been there or whatever, listening at the moment, or they're from out of town and they're thinking of coming. There's certainly a lot to do within that area. We've had some wild nights after some games out there. We can't mention them on the podcast, all right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, we've had some issues there with the locker. We tried to reach out to the locker room and tried to reach out to the brewery, but they especially locker room, we wanted them to open up the middle section at least, and that's always closed. And we're hoping to get that as a pre-game venue for people to meet up before the game and then walk over together. But they wanted a hefty sum of money just for us, from us, just to open that up. And whereas you get pubs there, and for wanting to have that pre-game event sort of thing for the Burrow, it certainly suits us. In that sense, going to Allianz, where we got plenty of pubs that will go, yeah, come on in and join us. So we'll have it. We'll open up a section for you. That's no problem. We had it, as Mark said, we had it with the KB for a long time, and no doubt there's many pubs will be putting their hands up there to try and get us there.
I'm sure they will.
100%.
We spoke before briefly about cost. We're only talking about season tickets, and we haven't touched base on the cost of food and that for families going to a game. And whilst myself being seen, I've got a partner obviously, but going to the games by myself, it may cost me an extra $5 to $10 just for myself. But you're talking about a family of 5, you're looking at about $50 extra just for food to go to Allianz, aren't you?
Oh yeah. The food at Allianz is a lot more. I think I spoke to you about it before, Kempy. I think I don't even know what this thing was, but I got it and it was a wrap and it had stuff in it, and it was the best thing I've ever tasted. But it was $20-something. So it was big money, but you're paying for that extra bit of quality. It's pretty good food there. I think one time I had a cheeseburger spring roll. I don't know if you've ever had them there. It doesn't sound that good, but it tastes unbelievable. Now, I don't know. I can't remember what that was, but then there might be some healthier options. People can go get sushi and stuff like that. There's so many options at that stadium. I haven't been upstairs, but apparently there's an Italian restaurant as well that overlooks the ground that you got to book and all that stuff on game day, and top food, and you can watch it. There's so much more on offer at that stadium, but you are going to pay through your teeth. There's a lot more for people who like to have a few beers at the footy or a pie. There's still got all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of different options for beer at the footy. I find Accor they narrow you down to a couple of beers you don't even want, like the Iron Bark or whatever it was. It's terrible. It's like cat's piss, and they might give you another one that's you've never heard of, and it's terrible. Whereas at that stadium there, I'm pretty sure I counted about 9 beers on tap. Different companies, they weren't all narrowed down to one company. You'd be stuck with, certain company, but they had a lot of options there. And I don't know about wine drinkers or soft drink, but I'm sure they had plenty of options for everyone.
Mate, there's only one option, isn't there, when you're a South man, mate? Is it Young Henry's, isn't it, chaps?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they had that one on tap there, but yeah, there's. I'm sure they'll get it on tap. I'm sure
Get
Blake
it in there. Get it in there.
They'll get it over the line.
Yeah, well, we've got you're right. There is definitely plenty of choice of food there at Allianz, and I know they tried to change things up where they put El Jana in there. It's just there behind the Burrow, and I've had El Jana plenty of times, and there's great food there at El Jana. Yet you get it there at the stadium. It doesn't compare, does it?
No, I haven't had that, but no.
Nah, we haven't either, mate. Look at you're right, mate. Look, at the end of the day, we might buy a couple of soft drinks or something like that, and maybe a chips or something for the girls to share while they're sitting there and watching the. But mate, I'll probably take them to Macca's after the game, mate. It's just like at the end of the day, like the food aspect of it doesn't really bother me because. Yeah, I don't feel like getting a second lot of employment just to be able to feed the family when I go to the football. So either stadium is a pain in the ass with their pricing. I think everybody knows that. That's not for discussion. That's shit. But yeah, I mean, just take your kids to Macca's or KFC or something like that after the game if you're that keen, or just have a big feed before you go.
Yeah,
And you
which
can
incidentally,
you're right. There are ways around it, aren't there?
you can bring your
oh,
own food as well. I always go to Woolies and get some chips and that and all that
yeah,
stuff, or a few
100%.
sushi rolls and chuck them in, and that sorts the kids out pretty quick. Depends how rushed you are for time as well. You know, if you're rushing home from work, grabbing and putting it in the car and heading out, you're not going to have time for any of that shit. So,
No, I mean,
yeah.
hey, Josh, remember Brunty, mate, and and his whole chickens and his loaf of bread at the.
Yes. The funny thing is, he'd have a feed there at South on Chalmers. He'd have a big feed there, and that didn't satisfy him enough. And he'd go down and you met Brunty over in Perth there, chaps. That was
Yeah.
my mate there. So, and he'd go down, and
Well, he's
that
a
wasn't
legend.
enough. So he'd go down and get a whole chicken and just smash that from Woolies. So.
Mate, I remember, I remember going from the league club, and we'd be going, where the hell's Brunty gone? Because he just scarper, right?
Yeah.
And no one would know where the hell he was.
I'll
And
tell you.
all of a sudden he pops back in the middle of the crowd walking to the game, and he'd have his whole chicken and his loaf of bread.
Oh, too good. What?
And his ripped jeans, outstanding, mate. Brunty, love you.
I'll tell you a story about we told it at Dad's funeral actually this year. His father was a big South fan too. They grew up in the Belmore area, sorry. And anyway, they went to the footy, and back then you could take an esky with beers and all sorts of shit. They wouldn't, in the 60s at the SCG, we played St George, huge game. Pops there, me mum and me dad, and a bit of yahoo in between the fans. Anyway, someone threw a big frozen chicken, hit me pop in the back of the head, knocked him out cold, right?
Wow.
Stopped the game nearly stopped, and they had to come and get a stretcher in, take him off the hospital. He was all right, but some St George fan for a frozen chook and hit pop in the head.
What is it about Dragons fans and throwing food at people? If you remember, there was a TikTok video where a guy got a pie, he bought a pie and threw it at the Bulldogs.
He did
fan.
too.
So, they like throwing food there.
They're making plenty of money over in St George, mate. Yeah, they can just throw it away.
Oh, mate, South and St George. I remember that first Charity Shield, 2002. My mates and these drove the biggest stink out the front. It was on for young and old out there, mate. Wow. Police horses had to come in, and anyway, it's all good banter, mate. Yeah. That was a wild night, that one, mate.
I was thinking about getting involved, mate.
There was a couple of people over their noses bent out of shape, but
don't you do that, son?
Yeah. Well, they end up looking like that Donohoe from the Dolphins from the other day.
Oh, isn't he tough? Jeez, he's tough as nails, that kid. And he's pretty skillful too. I like what I've seen from Kurt Donohoe.
Well, we touched briefly on it before. We're talking about the venues themselves. We're talking about the view and the atmosphere. Let's go a bit further into that. Whereas I know a lot of people over the years have complained about you get a 15,000 under crowd, even under a 20,000 crowd. You just don't get the atmosphere at Accor that you would at Allianz, would you?
Nah.
No, you don't. Look, we've had some fantastic atmospheres. Like, I mean, the one where we got beat by the Bulldogs, 2-12, the prelim final. Adam Reynolds does a kick, does his hammy. That was a great atmosphere that night. Look, we've had 25,000 fans out there, and it's a great atmosphere. But I've also been out there where we were beaten by the Warriors 66-0, where Steve Price ran for an NRL record at the time, 330 metres. And you could hear a pin drop. It was the worst atmosphere I've ever been at a game in my life. It's like a funeral that day. Whereas I can remember going back to the SFS back in the day, playing the same team, the Warriors, when they didn't have too many fans. And we're up, I think I told Josh the other day, we're up 24-6, and they roared back and beat us 30-24 or something like that. Like, that was a great atmosphere, but there was only 15,000 people in the joint.
That went into Golden Point? Was that the game?
Yeah, it went into Golden Point, yeah.
Yeah, Stacey Jones field goal, wasn't it?
A field goal, was it? Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure.
But that was a good atmosphere, wasn't it? When you remember those, even the one where we came back to beat the Roosters out there. That wasn't a huge crowd, but that was an unbelievable atmosphere.
That was a Monday night game too. So
Monday night game.
Still got a decent crowd there for a Monday night game, and I remember that because the Roosters fans were giving it to us. And
was
it Pearce that scored the try? They thought that won them the game, and by the time we were just celebrating when Reynolds scored, that by the time we turned around to give it back to the Roosters fans, they'd all dispersed. They got out of there quick smart. But yeah,
But
That doesn't sound like them. What?
also that other game we beat Penrith a few years ago, it might have been was it last year, the year before, where we came back from 2 tries in the final couple of minutes. That wasn't a huge crowd, but that was a good atmosphere. That was a pretty good atmosphere that day. What was that, Josh? Can you remember? Was that would have been only in the teens, 16,000 maybe?
It may have been because it was the Anzac Day game. Like it wasn't on. I don't think it was on Anzac Day per se, but it was on the Anzac weekend. So, and Tass scored the final try. But yeah, it just went off, didn't it? So I mean, you do get some sort of atmosphere at times, and it helps when the team's going well.
Well, look, just like we'll go back to Accor because that's our home ground the last 20 years. Like we've had some great memories out that ground, some huge games that we won. The 2014 grand final, like, that's the last time we won a comp. So there is some pretty good memories at that stadium. We've won some big semi-final. The first one we beat the Melbourne Storm that year. We beat the Canberra Raiders in a big semi there. But we've had some great moments. I don't know. You got any moments that you can think of, boys, there that just you'll never forget?
Oh, you're never going to forget the 2014 grand final, even the prelim final against the Roosters. But that
was huge.
What about the finals against Manly and the Dragons, where Reynolds kicked 3 field goals? They're great memories, and we've certainly got plenty of them over the years. And
AJ's 5 tries, was it, against the Panthers that year?
Penrith.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock.
And what about the 60 points to 8 victory over the Roosters, where AJ again scored 5 tries, and that one where Corey Allen was over the line and passed it to him.
Yes.
I rubbed the salt in the wounds. Yep.
Yeah. When he ends up breaking the record, and gets out one extra try, he can turn around and thank Corey Allen, can't he, that he got it a try earlier. So, but yeah, there's definitely plenty of memories, and we've had plenty of memories back in the day when we did play at SFS. Although that was a very bad period for us for a lot of the times, but the wins that we had there were very special. Remember beating the Roosters 17-16. They'd beaten us 13 times straight.
Yeah,
that was 2005. So
that was when Ashley Harrison was captain, wasn't
it? Yeah. Was it Luke Stewart that made a really important tackle right?
Brian Fletcher was in the team too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember
he was there for comic value.
Funny bastard, mate.
The 2 years that we beat the Melbourne Storm there, 2003 to 2004. I remember smashing. We put 40
Arthur
points.
Katinas, first game as coach, and that was
the year after we won by 2 points in the end. That game where Artie was and Joey
was
Williams.
That when the ball went through like 17 sets of hands or something like that?
That was at Accor. That was at Accor. We lost that game. Yeah. Okay. And there was about 3 kicks involved, or 2 kicks involved in that one. Farlongo scored it. I think Farlongo ended up scoring that try. So.
Yeah.
But we've all got great memories, and we've got great memories at, Redfern that we can remember back in the day that we've had. Many of the younger people will only at the moment remember Accor, but even in at Allianz at the moment, we've never won a regular season game. But we've undefeated in finals there. We played the Roosters. Who's going to forget that? The sad Sunday game.
Sin Bin Sunday. That's one of the great games of all time.
That was outstanding.
That's one of the great semi-finals you will ever see.
Yeah. And how good was it when we were down to 11 men and Latrell Mitchell scores? It's like, it's unbelievable. I think more points were scored. We scored more points when we were down players than we did 13 on the field. So.
Yep. And I've got great memories too, mate, of the of our 88 and 89 season. You know what I mean? At the
that was stadium.
I remember when I was pissing down with Rayner. I think we were playing St George and
32-0.
Graham Lyons scored this absolute pearler of a try, and he dead set slid from the 10-metre line and slid over the dead ball line. And I just thought that was the most, as a kid back then, that was the most outstanding thing I'd ever seen as a rugby league supporter.
Well, one of my favourite players is that. Yeah, one of my favourite players is Phil Blake growing up, and that same game in that weather, just a chip and chase, it just hit the ground. Yet he picked it up with ease. It was like he was playing in dry weather there, and scored a try. I believe that was 32-0 that game.
Something like that, mate. Yeah, it was a good one. Yeah.
And that whole season, it rained nearly every game. That whole
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
It suited us. We had a good forward pack. We had some pretty quick halves, big, strong outside back. It really suited us that season.
It did until injuries hit right at the back end of the season. We struggled there at the back end of the season because of injuries. But
Yeah.
we talked about the atmosphere, the view. Now it's one of the things you're certainly much closer there at Allianz, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
100%.
It's, as I said, it's a purpose-built rugby league soccer stadium, and some of the atmospheres you get there for Sydney FC v the Wanderers, mate, unbelievable atmospheres.
We've been to a few of those, haven't we, Mark?
Yeah, we have.
Incredible.
And we're not even watching the game. We're just watching one end to the other, looking at both sets of fans, just going, okay, the Cove down there, the
Brilliant.
the RBB at the other side. We're looking at both ends, and it's quite interesting. But we remember the game, the women's state of origin. We watched that, and the conditions there. I don't think it had rained that much at that point, but the conditions of the field, it was atrocious, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it rained a fair bit around here. It did. It belted down for hours and hours leading up to I had friends that went out there with their daughters and everything. They said there was only 10,000 there, but they said what an experience. They said what a great so many all these girls cheering and screaming. There was only 10,000 there. They said it was a great atmosphere. Now I wouldn't have thought that because I only watched it on TV. But so the people that go there, you just get that different experience at this game. We're probably going to have games where we get under 10,000 in the pouring rain out there. It happens. The Thursday night games, we've had a few against Penrith a few years ago in the driving rain. We had about 8,000 or 9,000. But it was, look, at Allianz it might be a different experience.
Yeah, well, we seen the game the other night. It was Bulldogs versus Dolphins, and that had been raining for a whole week and a half. And you look at them playing on there, you wouldn't have even known that. If you hadn't seen the two pictures and said which game was played where there was a bit of, like there was a few hours rain on that day compared to a week and a half rain, you'd say, well, the Allianz game was the one where they had all that rain and Accor was just a little bit, but it was quite the opposite, wasn't it?
It doesn't handle water at all, this place. I'm not sure what they've done, or I think I said it to you the other day. I think Parramatta and Accor, Allianz, have got the same builders, and Parramatta Stadium has the same problem. Am I wrong or what? They don't handle the rain. That doesn't handle the rain either. But I think Allianz is actually worse than that.
I think it was 2021. It was the Bulldogs were playing. Was it Bulldogs were playing Penrith there, and it was a Saturday game, and it was terrible weather because I went out to Brookvale. We played Manly that game, and I remember watching the pitch there at Combank, thinking, what's it going to be like at Brookvale? I'm thinking it's going to be heaps worse. Are they going to call the game off? And the condition of Brookvale was perfect there. Like it held the water really well where this new stadium couldn't. That was the one where Damien Cook chased down Jason Saab. But
They don't make them like they used to, lads. That's for sure. Like it's a bit like us. They
Nah.
they just don't make them like they used to, mate. So
No, you'd love. I wish we back in the day before we ripped Redfern down, they renovated it. Look, you can forget Accor and Allianz. I'll chuck them in the bin any day of the week.
100%.
If we could get a 20,000 seat stadium at Redfern Oval or a bit more, 22 or whatever, mate, they'd be the hottest ticket in town, mate. You play a big top four match there, mate.
Well, you make a good point with smaller grounds because people suffer from FOMO all of a sudden, don't they? And they go, no, I have to go. Whereas now they're like, there's plenty of seats opportunity for me to go. Oh, I won't go. Whereas you go, no, I need to go because I don't want to miss out.
100%.
I love Leichhardt. We don't get to play there very often because we're quite big teams these days. But I think it was my 30th birthday. We went out and my mates went out there. And we had a great time. About 20 or 30 of us on the hill drinking cans. Did a big pub crawl through that area. Brilliant. I think we won too. I think we won that game 30-6 from memory. But
that was 2007, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a great win, mate.
It was quite bad on the hill because, and this is the thing, we talk about suburban grounds and definitely we romanticise Leichhardt Oval, and I found that game, well, on the hill like this, all packed and that.
You couldn't move.
You couldn't go to the toilet because the lines are just too big. Trying to get food there, leaving the ground, it was just horrendous. While people in the commentary box, all relaxed, although they don't have it perfect there either. the
No.
facilities there are quite bad, but they're sitting there going, "Oh, how good's this? Look at that hill." I think they would think different if they were actually on the hill, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, if you're sitting down in the middle of this, it wasn't not fun. But we were up on the left-hand side at the top. Wasn't a far walk to the little bar and all that. That was good. No, I enjoyed it, but I have been there in other days when it's wet weather and it's not a great ground to be out when it's raining.
Oh,
That's for
nah,
sure.
she's
You
rank.
can't sit down, mate. The wet
Nah,
ground's wet. It's freaking awful.
nah, she's
No.
rank.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone over a lot of the pros and cons and that, but I think we've forgotten to speak about the biggest pro of moving to Allianz, and that's that it pisses off the Roosters and their fans.
Yeah, that's the number one. I know
Mate,
that.
you know what? I'd take a move to Allianz, right? If they can put our emblem in front of theirs on the front of
Funny thing, I was
100%,
I
mate.
was at work
Sold.
the other day and I walked into a couple of blokes having a discussion about it, Rooster bloke and a South bloke, and I said, you know what the sticking point is? And I've got inside information. I was only G'ing them up. I said, South will not budge on it, but they want to be the third one along. I think it's got Sydney FC, Waratahs, and the Roosters. We want to be third, and Roosters have got to be fourth. I said, that's the only sticking point. Once they decide that, we're moving there.
Mate would have blown his top.
Oh, he was blowing up. He said, mate, you shouldn't even have one up there. Anyway, but oh, they're pretty sensitive at the moment, the Chookies. They don't want us in town, but they got to look at it. They get 2 games at Allianz versus the Rabbits. 2 games there now.
Yep.
Yeah.
When we eventually get the nod to go there. So,
Well, there was an old article rehashed today saying that Blake signed the deal knowing that he wasn't going to get funding. Certainly, he said, she said. But yeah, it's funny. You kind of wonder if that's got Roosters prints over that article, don't you?
oh, that's got Nick Politis written all over it. Uncle Nick and his brown paper bags. That they don't discriminate, mate. They'll hand them to any journalist. So to get an article out for Pro in his favour. But look, boys, I think there's a couple of negatives, no doubt about it. If you want to summarise the whole thing, I think we're worried about the cost. In terms of when I say cost, the cost of the membership. I think access for people that are less fortunate than us in terms of mobility wise. Obviously, parking I think is a problem just for the punter who wants to drive to the stadium. I think public transport's pretty bloody good. Can't complain about that. But I think the overall fan experience is a big win for everyone.
Yeah. Well, we all always have different feelings, different thoughts. What makes our game day experience better? I know some people that are adamant that if we move to Allianz, they won't go to a game. That's sad because they're going to miss out on something they really do love, but that's their choice. Hopefully they do change their mind and find, the club can help them, especially those with mobility issues. I know they're planning to build a car park there at Allianz, but I'm not sure that's going to solve too many problems. Maybe it'll help a few people that they won't have to walk as far.
The build one at the Juniors has already started.
Well, see, the
It's a 4 or 5 story one, yeah.
Yeah, well, the good thing about it with the juniors is that for people like myself and you, we can get on the light rail, and it's easy for us to walk that 10-minute walk from the light rail stop to the ground. It's not an issue there, but older people, and you started talking before about what Jack was bringing up about possibly getting a bus from the juniors to drop them out at the front, especially for people that do have those mobility issues. Hopefully they can do something like that. The club can look at something like that with the juniors, work together, and look, we just want to get more people in the game. But the other thing we haven't touched base on is the crowds. Like we'll certainly see an initial rise in crowds, but when things start to kind of ease down a bit and the novelty of moving wears off, where do we see that the crowds will be?
I think even allowing for crowds to dwindle off to that 15,000 mark at Allianz, like the atmosphere is gonna sound a hell of a lot better than 15,000 at Accor. That's I don't think there's any debate about that, and I think realistically, depending on the time of day or night that the game's going to be on, that's probably a realistic sort of benchmark crowd figure that you'll probably get once that initial honeymoon period dies off.
Yeah, agreed. And I know one thing I'm looking forward to when we get up 2 or 3 tries, about 8 minutes left on the clock. Take me home, Botany Road. It's going to sound a lot better at Allianz Stadium than it will out there at Accor. Look, it still sounds good at Accor. But I think that the people opposite the Burrow are closer to them, right? So they join in as well. The people, the next bay down will join in. Where it kind of,
You could almost
the
have that.
Burrow's
You
the
could
only
almost-
one singing. The Burrow's the only one singing at Accor. The rest of the stadium's not. Now, mate, I watched a match last night. A long-suffering Sunderland fan, mate. We've been out of the Premier League for 8 long years. They beat Sheffield United last night, and it was 85% Sunderland fans at Wembley. They're probably the top 5 biggest club in Europe, which is embarrassing they haven't been in there. They took over Trafalgar Square in the lead up to it, and the way they sing is incredible. And I reckon we could recreate that atmosphere on some of the big games out there at Allianz Stadium, in particular when we play the Roosters.
Yeah, look, and certainly the Sin Bin Sunday certainly showed what atmosphere we can create. A lot of the old school Burrow guys come back, especially finals. They always come back and help out. And that was just a great atmosphere.
Quick one, Josh. I think the podcast as well would be good for the songs, right? So leading into the games, you guys might get together and just, it could be only a 5-minute podcast. You go, okay, this week we're going to sing this song. Bang, it's going to be on the website. Then we're going to sing this when that's happening. You could educate the Burrow, not only the Burrow members, but the general public, the South fans, to say, look, this is what it is. Here's the words to the song we're singing. Blah blah blah, and people might get more involved. You could use this platform here to really fucking ramp it up.
How good would it be, right, if we could somehow get the big screen? You know how at the end
words.
of the game, how it always puts the words up of glory, glory. Right?
Yeah.
How good would it be if we were a fair bit in front? You know, with that, that 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
2 minutes ago, we used
that's a good idea.
Take me home, Botany Road, up on the big screen, right? So everybody can just go, oh shit, what's this? And then,
Well, you got the walkie-talkie. Josh has got the walkie-talkie. He's talking to the bloke upstairs, and and Josh goes, all right, mate, make the announcement, and he says it over the loudspeaker. Yeah. All right, it's time for Take Me Home, Botany Road. Take it away, the Burrow, and then they just sing it. What about that? There's one for Blake Solly.
I don't know if you realise then, Chaps, that when you did that, a thumbs up just in a bubble just came up then.
I didn't see that.
Even the internet liked it, mate. What a good comment.
Couple of fucking Rabbitohs walkie-talkies, mate. Yeah. We'll sort that out.
Well, that's certainly a great idea, and I think we've covered all bases here today.
Yeah.
And certainly, the viewers at home, you guys have got your own thoughts. Please leave a comment and let us know your thoughts on it. Are you pro Allianz? Are you pro Accor? Or what would it take for you, if you're thinking about not going to Allianz, what would it take for you to get there? Certainly, the club would like to know your thoughts as well. I know that for sure, and they'll do what they can to help if we do move, because it's certainly not over the line yet. There's still a few things to go, but we certainly want to know your thoughts at home. And
even just your thoughts on the how good looking the blokes are that are on this podcast today. and have you seen 3 more ridiculous looking heads in your entire life?
Yeah, a couple of it should have been an audio podcast, I think. Anyway,
this is just the norm for us in the Burrow.
Now, I just want to give a quick one. There's a point you brought up earlier. You said there's a couple of people are not going to attend games because it'd be too hard for them and all that. Well, when we play a big semi-final at Allianz Stadium as our home ground, do you reckon those people are going to come?
Oh, look.
Of course they're going to come. Australians love a winning. Australians love a winning team, mate.
That's true, but mate, like yourself, I'll be there whether we're playing at Allianz or Accor. I'm just 10 minutes.
Or Allegiant Stadium, mate. You'll be there too.
That was brilliant. It's a shame, Mark, that you and Loz weren't there, because I know you were considering it at one point, and it was a shame that you guys weren't there to experience that. But I wish we had a stadium like that here.
But I wasn't going till a week out of it. I said, I want to do. I can't, And then me and my missus ended up getting on that Qantas staff travel, so it only cost us stuff all to get there. I think it was maybe $900 return.
Well,
so that's the only reason we went. And then we got accommodation. We were only there a couple of nights, really. Don't know why we got accommodation. Never slept a wink. Then we went up. Then we went up to New York for a couple of nights, and then come home. Yeah, it was good.
Nice. Well, that about wraps it up anyway. Any final thoughts, guys? First to you, Mark.
Look, mate. Again, I think there's definitely pros and cons for both grounds. Whichever way the club goes, it's not going to realistically, to be honest, it's not going to stop us as a family going, because we just love it. We're South Sydney through and through, and it wouldn't matter to us really, but to anybody else that might be impacted, that's where the issue that sort of I've got in terms of moving it. But hey, look, at the end of the day, we've had 22 years or 25 years or something like that at Accor.
20 years.
20 years. Maybe it is time to venture on and go somewhere else. Specifically, when our number one season ticket holder can't do anything about the changing of the structure to get some cash flowing into Accor. Not going to mention any names. Busy. Yeah, I mean, either for us, mate. Really.
And chaps.
Yeah, look, again, I mean, just like the two of you blokes, it doesn't matter where we're playing. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to put my heart in, cash in to go. I'm going to take the time out of my day, drag my family out there, drag my friends out there, encourage people to get out there, whether it's Accor Stadium, or we're going to be going to Accor by the sounds of it anyway, whether it's a Bulldogs game or a Parramatta game. But, look, at the end of the day, I think overall, for the club, for South Sydney Rabbitohs District Football Club, I think it's a great opportunity to go back, reinvigorate the club, get back to that fan experience, and I think I think it's going to be better for membership. I think you're going to get a lot more for your membership. I think some of these post-match functions are going to be a must, or they might even do pre-match functions. You don't know what sort of capabilities we're going to have. This stadium is state-of-the-art. Now, we've only been there a couple of times because we haven't played there many times. I haven't gone around the upstairs or downstairs. There could be some unbelievable opportunities out there for us members. And financially, I mean, the club is doing pretty well financially, but it just might give us another 10 or 15% of funding to make our team even more competitive than they already are at the moment, and get us back up to the pointy end of that table where we all want to be, in that top 3 or 4 teams. And I don't think we're too far away at the moment. And I think I'm going to put my trust in Blake Solly and the crew out there at South Sydney Rabbitohs and Shannon Donato in that corporate side of things. I think the corporate facilities will be incredible. They can probably get more money out of that, all those big companies jumping on board, entertaining their guests and whatnot. So, look, I think it's a win-win, Josh, for me.
Well, it's great having both you guys giving up your Sunday morning here and giving us a bit of time and sharing your thoughts on this. No doubt we'll have you both on the podcast again. Mark, hopefully we're going to be able to get you to be a bit more of a regular now and do some analysis of the games. We certainly
He's a gun, isn't he? He's a bit of a gun, isn't he, mate?
He's a natural.
Mate, always a pleasure chatting to you, Josh, and also you, Mark. Haven't seen a lot of you lately, mate. Say good day to your missus and everything, and we'll see you out in that Warriors game, mate. I'm really looking forward to that. It's a big game coming up. We're playing a top side, the most consistent team in the competition. They're big, physical. They're hard to handle. It's a good opportunity for us families to get out there in particular. I'm taking on my whole family out there. Anyone listening online, make sure you make the effort. This team is fighting their guts off at the moment for us as fans. So make sure you make a few sacrifices and get out there yourself next Sunday.
Yeah, Not to mention when we get the rest of our troops back from injury, mate, we're going to be red hot. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Shit hot, red hot, 100%.
Well, we'll discuss that a bit further on our podcast once the team's dropped. For now, I'm your host, Josh. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm joined here by Chaps and Mark. Go the Bunnies.
Up the mighty Rabbitohs.
Up the Rabbitohs.
South Sydney! South Sydney!